Hi. Settle here. Get comfortable. Satnam. Satnam. A lot of what I talk about is in terms poetic terms of the master and the slave. Um, and it's important to understand that um, again, everything having to do with the way a relationship happens, the way relatingness happens with our world, within ourselves, among each other, um, is is the result of a perspective and the coherence of a perspective. And the same is true of the movement of energy and effort through ourselves. So we may think that over here I have more energy and over here I don't have quite as much energy. But the reason for that has more to do with the disjointedness. It's more to do with the seeming transitions, the seeming differences between those things. It's i- it's that sort of very simple concept of that when people talk about multitasking and how much energy is lost in switching tasks, it's the same with anything. That in seeing a task as switching, in perceiving that we are changing topics, changing relationship, changing atmosphere, changing environment, the perception, the attitude that we have towards that transition, which is really not, we don't understand that we're having an attitude towards the transition. We think we're making distinctions. Like this thing is fun and this thing is not fun, right? That sort of rupture, that twist in the energy flow is where energy is depleted, where energy is lost. You have to make a new thing, like everything's a new universe. And so the strong feeling this morning was a picture of what probably a lot of us have gone through as children and young people, when your confidence and when your enthusiasm is met with kind of like a how dare you react like that? How dare you treat this situation like that? And so we go, oh, I must have brought the wrong feeling to this situation. I must have brought the wrong thing here. I misunderstood. I thought we were still in the same world, in the same universe, right? And this may happen if, one of your caretakers is grieving and you don't appear to be in grief and that offends them, or if a caretaker is angry about something and you're not in a place of feeling like because anger often in those circumstances is a feeling of a loss of power. So then if you're not seeming to be subject to the anger, that can make it worse, because that's a yet another expression of them not having power, is that you're like just in your own world, right? So it's where our perception of the universe, our treatment, our attitude towards the universe, um, differs from those we rely on, from those we love, from those we are looking to for an example of how the universe works. How does the world work? How does the universe work? And we may learn from teachers or whoever, over here we're serious, and over here, you can be loud and crazy. And there's a difference between conduct and tone of the atmosphere. So yes, in the library you're not going to be running and screaming, whereas at recess you can do so as you like. However, it can be extremely it creates a kind of cycle of fatigue and burnout when every little detail, every little event, every little task requires its own universe, requires its own reevaluation. And that is why the most successful people I have ever met have not been the most so called intelligent. And if we're using intelligent in the terms of, and maybe this isn't even a sign of intelligence, but a quality of intelligence which is analyzing and inquiring about everything, wanting to know the ins and outs of everything, if we call that intelligence, then the most the most successful people I know would not be considered that. They're highly intelligent in that they know how to manage their energy, their emotions, and their environment, and more the first two than the third. It's the order of the mind which creates success, not the assertion of mind on everything, which mind as the categorizer, which seems like organization, but it's not. It's not organization. If you're not doing anything constructive with it with your mind, then it's not it calls itself organization, but really it's just overexertion. I feel like I just went really like down a wormhole that might be difficult to understand. But the important thing to notice, and I never say keep in mind, or try not to say keep in mind. If I do, it's a mistake, because the factor of the task of remembering how to be a powerful, resilient, bold person, it's not a factor of remembering, it's a factor of tuning. And that's part of what I mean about the highly successful people are not remembering how to be a certain way. Our effort is to tune with the use of the broad vision of the movement of the universe, of the movement of relationships, of the movement of my attention, and the understanding of what depletion means. The most successful people I know don't think that hard about things. And that's a really important point. Don't think that hard about things. They forget things easily. They usually forget things that aren't in their immediate field. They deal with things as they present themselves because they have moved themselves into such a rhythm that anything else is extraneous. You deal quickly with the things that present themselves to you, and you're forgetful, and you move on, and you don't store all that much in here. This is used to to make decisions. It's not used as a storage unit. And so highly successful people do not generally hold a tremendous amount of grudges unless it's probably like a one sort of like adversary, like one competitor or whatever. In that case, then that person is always present in their mind or what, right? So generally, grudges are not a thing. The complexity of any kind of entanglements are not a thing. And relationships which require a kind of entanglement, or relationships that require what these people will generally call it is drama. They call it drama. That it's like, and drama translates as it takes too much mental energy to manage this because there's always something, some part of the maze that I didn't realize we were in. Isn't that fun? You get the reflection. This is a streaming device, not a container. And that's why everything has to do with toning, toning the atmosphere, toning the conduct, toning the emotional body. And then it creates a natural boldness, a natural resilience. I'm all over the place right now with this. So I'm trying to find like where's the right point of access to really describe what I'm trying to say. A lot of highly empathic people are not highly successful until they learn this, because, and this is one of the reasons why, they are too willing to relocate basically to everyone else's emotional planets. That you enter a room and someone is having an emotional experience and you go, oh, that must be what this experience is. Someone is angry, someone is sad, someone is whatever. You enter their space and think, oh, this must be where we are now. And so then when you're empathic in that way, that's not it's not I mean, it's a wonderful thing to be able to understand what's going on with other people, but it's not a productive, virtuous thing to join other people on their planet. And that's what's so challenging for children and for highly empathic individuals is they've learned a survival mechanism which is not contributing to success. It's not contributing to their health. It's not contributing to anyone's well-being. They've learned, oh, I have to join you where you are. I have to for my safety, for our relationship, for approval, for whatever. And I think it's really important for people who identify with being known as an empath or considering themselves as an empath. It's really important for these people not to uphold that conduct as productive and virtuous. It's not necessarily, it's not in my description of this, it's not a generous thing to do that. It's not generous to yourself, it's not generous to others. You're not being generous to the field when every single person, every single event, every single task is a new planet that you have to then like bring your whole world to. It's like, oh, we're doing bummed out now. Okay. Oh, we're doing you're angry now. Okay. And so then rather adhering to the coherent quality of the divine, rather than adhering to God, rather than adhering to the voice of the soul, we are adhering to the voice of someone else's experience, or even within ourselves, a distinction of experiences of good and bad, so of judgment. So that's what I mean when I talk about slave and master. We become slaves to um, temporary perspectives because that becomes our priority to cope with. That becomes item number one that we're dealing with. It's not my coherence with the universe, it's my coherence with whatever thing is going on for somebody around me. So then I am a slave to that because that's the number one thing I'm coping with. And then we do that with other parts with the segment of our lives, the segmentation of our lives. So our work, it's like, oh, work, that's a great part of my life. When I go there, this is a cohesive whatever. A very straightforward way of saying it is God is present. God is present there, God is not present there. God is present there, God is not present there. Oh, God must not be here. Oh, God is definitely here. That's the exhausting thing. That's the exhausting thing is when we have this we make our minds do that dance. The exhausting thing is not multitasking. The exhausting thing is not being busy. The exhausting thing is not even necessarily a physical depletion because we come back from that fast. The exhausting thing is the disjointedness of continuously having to um, have an opinion or a judgment about ourselves or others, the situation, whether things are good or bad, fun or not fun, enjoyable, whatever. That's the exhausting thing. I want a better way to say that. But the strongest image that comes to my mind is like a child feeling sure, feeling confident, feeling present with divine source, feeling in love, the love of life, the enthusiasm of life. Like not even necessarily bouncing into a room, but arriving in a space where their caretaker is saying things are not right. Life is not right. a mistake was made, things have gone wrong. How dare you treat life? How dare you treat life as if things are correct? And I don't think I know anyone who has not experienced that. Because there are always times when we forget our connection, and children are simply vulnerable to that observation. Children are just there to see you forget. And then you forget, and they go, oh gosh, maybe I was wrong in my feeling confident that life is life is life, and this is life, and this is life, and this is life. Yeah. How dare you think that God did the right thing? Because I'm an adult and I have my opinions about that. And so, if you're feeling especially depleted, if you're feeling insecure, if you're feeling like you're having a hard time making decisions, one of the very first things that you can do is to, if you move into a place where you are feeling like you are procrastinating, if you are avoiding, if you are dreading something, if you are not, um, if you are feeling resentful towards something, one of the first things you can do is basically refer to the natural vibration in yourself of feeling at ease and peaceful, if you have access to that. Refer to the space in you where you are um, content. It doesn't have to be crazy exuberant or super excited or like a million miles an hour. You don't need that in order to be productive. That's a bonus. That's a bonus. But sometimes those feelings of the pushing feelings towards exuberance can be a little bit reactive towards uh, the other end of the spectrum. So just refer to the sensation in yourself, which is peaceful, which is breathing deeply, and simply remind yourself that that exists in everything you need to deal with. That exists in everything you have any kind of reaction, responsibility, response to. That even in the things you don't want to do, even in the situations you want to avoid, there is nothing missing. Going from having your coffee to doing work, you can make those transitions really smooth when you know the ribbon, the thread that you have the power to weave through everything. And then when you meet with someone that's like, that's not how this moment is. You say that this is also here. This is also here. And I don't have to be afraid that I missed something because someone else is having a different experience. I don't have to be afraid that I somehow like missed a vital detail, vital to my survival or this relationship or whatever, that I didn't like. It's like they're upset about, it's an evolutionary thing, right? Like they're freaking out about the cheetah that's running them down, and you're like, "Oh my god, did I not see the cheetah?" Right? And there's so few cheetahs for real in contemporary life. And so if someone else is seeing a cheetah, you have the space to not be like, "Uh-oh, I completely screwed that one up because I did not get the memo on what this moment was going to be." And instead, you take the thread that you've chosen to weave into your moments in order to maintain your energy, in order to create resilience. You take that thread. So someone else might be flipping out, and that's okay. It also gives you the space to not need them to like come back to your planet in order for you to maintain your stability, maintain your energy levels. You felt that drop in your stomach, right? Which is when you meet with someone who's freaking out, your stomach drops because you're like, "Oh gosh, I have to do all this work to get them back to like happy planet or whatever." But you don't. You just need to stay with your determination, with your ribbon. And that's what the fortitude of decision making and tuning the decision making. So every moment isn't something to be coped with. Every human isn't something to be coped with. Every task isn't something to be coped with. And this is a really personal journey for me, because I've gone through my life being like, I do not know. I literally do not understand how people can do this life thing, because everything was something to like cope with. I have to evaluate every moment to figure out what was going on. That like you can't make it 2 days without like having a meltdown. But when you take the ribbon with you, what is deeply known is that you don't abandon others who are having a different experience. You're not rejecting them, because that's a big part of it, is that you don't want to be in rejection of others. That when you take your ribbon along of peace and contentment, and for me, it's God is here, and God is here, and God is here too, and God is in this, and God is in that. Whether or not I like it doesn't make it easy. I saw a deer yesterday with a broken leg, and I was like, why? Why? Why is this happening? Why? God is here too. God is here too. God is here too. So the determination stops being managing others, because this is where we get into the world of narcissism, personality disorders, because there's no cohesive thread. There's no self. There's only the management, uh, control, and manipulation of others and situations. When you determine to take your ribbon through every moment, then you continue loving others. You continue being able to be present for events that are uncomfortable. You don't turn away from your own range of emotions. You don't discount what other people are going through. You don't discount what's going on around you. You don't discount tragedy. That's that delusion, is that we think if we take our presence, we almost feel like if we bring the beautiful, pleasurable moment anywhere near a moment that is less pleasurable, then somehow we're making the beautiful moment dirty or desecrating one or the other, that it's an insult to one or the other to stitch them together with that continuity of the presence of God. Our job as humans is to follow that flow and do what the moment needs us to do. And if we're busy trying to figure out whether or not we want to even be in that moment, then we can't serve the moment. Then we can't be what the moment needs, because we need something. We need to figure it out. We want to serve in real time, in real time. And whether that means you're a very assertive, outgoing, forward moving, like action oriented person, or whether you're more receptive and things flow to and through your world, because they're very different compositions. Like we have very different sort of, um, I would say it's almost like a body type. Like some people are like bean poles, and some people are round, and some people are slow, and some people are, it's like we just have different sort of constitution. We have different constitutions. But the desire of the teacher, the desire of the guide, the desire of the lover, the desire of the angelic, the desire of the saint, the desire of the guru, any of this is to be in service in real time to every moment. What does this moment need? What does this moment need? From what I bring, which is a cohesive series, which is a connected perspective. And we can even attach our goals to that. I want to bring grace. I want on my ribbon, I want my ribbon to have grace. I want my ribbon to have patience. I want my ribbon to have slowness. That's a big one. I want my ribbon to have tenderness. I want my ribbon to have generosity. I want my ribbon to have listening. I want my ribbon to have vibrancy. So whether it's so-called good or bad, whether it's a so-called negative emotion or a positive emotion, we are resisting the urge to sort of set those against each other. to sort of polarize them even more than they already are. We live in polarity. All things kind of pertain to polarity because they pertain to relationship. But when we excessively polarize, then we're just making too much work for ourselves to experience the range of what it is to be life. So, my job is not to polarize. My job is to be the element of cohesiveness. And this can seem scary to people because then they feel like they're enabling the darkness or they're encouraging negative emotion or whatever it is. But really it's a tonic for the whole rhythm, for the whole dance. It's a way to create something that's not just a selective mastery. It's an overarching mastery. What does this moment need? This moment which lacks nothing. This moment which is without nothing. This moment from which nothing is missing. How do I serve that moment, this moment? And so then we see how that which is eternal can be blossomed and amplified. This eternal moment from which nothing is missing, I can still serve it. Because as the human, I have a very special relationship between infinity and limitation. And the discovery of life is the power of the relationship between infinity and limitation. When there's nothing missing from any moment, I'm not going to try to hide from any moment. When nothing is missing from any moment, I'm not going to try to hack it and chop it and squish it into whatever. I'm not going to try to sort of manage it to my preferences. When nothing is missing from any moment, I don't get squirmy with it. And then I can see it and then I can serve it. I want to thank you for the peace and the curiosity and the grace that is required um, to hear what I'm saying and to enjoy it and to get something from it. There's a lot around us which encourages us to be always impatient, always um, it's like an immediacy thing. Get to the point. The point is gotten to. The experience of togetherness, the experience of sharing is time. And so, even if the point is now gotten to, which it is, it's the unfolding. It's how do you breathe? It's how do you sit quietly with otherness, with the expression of otherness. And what I transmit is food. This is food that the soul needs. This is food that overarching cycles of life are famished for. And the thing is that this food is everywhere. There's nowhere that you can turn where this quality of nourishment cannot be found. Nowhere. There's nowhere you could turn or look or be where this quality of nourishment is not present. And it's like someone walking through an orchard and not eating. It's funny. Wow, that's funny sort of reference to the Garden of Eden. But it's like every step having the crop laid out at your feet and not eating. That is what is meant in mysticism and other teachings having to do with hidden in plain sight. Mysticism is always hidden in plain sight. Alchemy is always hidden in plain sight. It is it is always the doorway within the self that must be unlocked by way of the will of that being. It's like being submerged in the ocean and being totally dry on the inside. And like, why can I not like get this ocean? Because the door has not been opened. And yet it is pressing around you from all sides at all times. The food is everywhere. The food is everywhere. And that's why when you're open, everything feels and looks like magic. And that's why a relationship with a mystic, with a poet, with scripture, with any of those things that sort of trigger that willingness to open the portal. Because that's all it is the willingness to open the portal. And that's why sincerity is so important. That's why being genuine is so important. That's why choosing to be tender is so important. That's why it's so important. That's why it's so toxic. That's why snide, snarky, um it's so toxic because that by its contempt, dismissal, that by itself is the underpinning of an unwillingness to be opened. And the unwillingness to be opened is starvation. In a sea of bounty, the most beautiful fruit you've ever seen or tasted in your life, in all of your lifetimes, in all of eternity, that you could turn that down because someone can't transform your snarkiness right now. Can't transform your jadedness. Jadedness is the most costly, is so costly. It's so costly. Trying to prove our intelligence, trying to prove our cleverness by how tough we are, by how smart we are, by how well we are familiar with the foolishness. And all it is an unwilling to be opened, unwillingness to be opened. No, I can't be transformed. I already know everything. Even God can be transformed. And we think we're so smart that we already know what's going on, what's coming. We think we're so smart. We need the conclusiveness to make ourselves feel secure. And when we do that, we rob ourselves of our ability to evolve. We need to know. But the knowing is a way to avoid seeing what we are. Satnam. May you greet this day with more vulnerability than ever before.